Anyone can go and buy a chainsaw and they get a set of instructions how to use the chainsaw. They're generic sort of instructions, but they're not actually addressing any main tasks of industry tasks and the things like that. When it comes to the industry and what goes on in the industry, well, then you've got a whole new scenario of things that they've got to be able to achieve and learn. So the chainsaw bar, bottom quadrant, top quadrant. As the chain goes around the top quadrant, as it's going around that top quarter, the raker, or the depth gauge is another term for it, is sticking out. It's a blunt piece of steel, so it doesn't cut. It sets the depth for the tooth to cut. You, as a trainer, are already efficient in those competencies and skills, but you've also got that sixth sense, that knowledge of industry that gets you where you've got to go, gets the outcome. But when you've got someone who's green, and in the sense of they don't know much about it, how much do they know? And a lot of the time what they do know is being shown by someone who doesn't know. So you've got to break all that down and find out what's what. So the best way to do it is start from basics. Here's the task: operate a chainsaw to cut a tree. Break that down into 6 or 7 components, or whatever the number is on the documentation for training that unit, and start from there. And then you've got to build on that.
What we'll do, we'll just cut a wheel off it. Yep. But what I want you to do now is, when you cut the wheel off, I'll give you a demo, but you use the spikes in the front there, the dogs, as leverage. So you put a lot more power onto the saw and take it off your body.
The biggest mistake, not the biggest, but a lot of the time you'll find yourself do it, you'll assume they understand what you said. Even when you tell them, they mightn't even understand exactly what you mean. What you're thinking and what they're thinking is still two different things. So you've got to be very careful of that. And sometimes if you lead by example, demonstrate, that'll make things 100% easier. So just remember, your chain brake, forwards on like a brake on a car, backs off, you want it off. The chain's spinning nice. Go over, taking off the bar and chain and turning the bar and chain over through the whole process. We talked about up in the classroom, and now we'll do it. So we'll loosen the 2 nuts off. We'll unscrew the chain adjuster, 2 turns, and that makes the chain hang down. And it just makes it all easy to put back on by doing those 2 turns on the chain adjuster. That there. So in here, there's your oil line, there's your chain adjuster.
I'm just going to put her back together.
Yep.
Leave that loose.
Yep. Let's have a look there. Is that on the sprocket? So if we talk about the compression cutting, we talked about that. But then you've got to break that down again, as there's 6 different types of compression cuts. There's 3 industries you could probably do it in. So you could be in a sawmill one day, you could be in a production logging operation, you could be doing hazard tree removal, you could be a first responder. There's all different techniques to be used in those venues. So you've got to break down what is going to get you through, and the person you're training and what they're doing in that industry sector. So if we're talking about compression cutting, there's a lot of techniques for compression cutting. In a sawmill there'll be different techniques. In production logging there'll be different techniques. First responders, different techniques. But there's 2 main techniques that'll do everything you want to do and will be the foundation for all the other techniques. One, if the top one there, if it's supported at one end, say a limb coming out off the log, underneath first, then on top. Now, only ever go a third underneath, otherwise the counterweight or the length, the weight of the log will actually come down and compress on you. So compression and tension is what we're talking about. But if it's a first responder, is probably the easiest, in the sense that all they have to do is do 2 compression cuts or get everything done that they want to get done. But at the same time, all the other offset stuff, the hazards and the hanging limbs and all that from that tree coming down, are all added to the scenario at the same time. So it's not just the compression cut, is the site hazard, the planning of the process. Can I walk up to this tree and just cut it up? Is there hanging limbs? There's that many scenarios going on. So you've got to cover off on all that safety side of it, and that sixth sense of what your industry experience is. Not just teaching them how to compression cut, it is the whole process of getting to that tree to start the compression cut is the valuable stuff as well in a high risk environment.